Hey there, I'm Niiamah Ashong, and I lead the Trailblazer Collective. We come together to really practice being the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. Every time I say that, it feels like such a lofty goal, and yet at the same time, I know that this is the very reason that we are in this space together. I had a conversation with a friend the other day around the unique time that we're in. And as I say the word unique time, I realize that like there's a quality of this that feels unique, and at the same time, there's always been tumultuous change taking place in various communities and areas all over the globe. In that conversation, what came up was this concept of malleability. You see, in times of great change, in times of great uncertainty, in the times that we live in, regardless of when you live in this year, there's an element of being able to mold and shape and craft and create what the world will look like afterwards. And I really want to be in that space here today of really acknowledging what is it that I mean by shaping the next era of humanity. For some of us, that means that we're taking on businesses and we're creating communities and we're galvanizing, we're organizing, and we're mobilizing people around causes that are important to us. For some of us, that means that we are in our businesses and we are leading our teams and leading our customers and clients to greater and greater things, both independently and collectively. For some of us, the way that we find this is to come into our households and to bring that out even further. The element here is really being willing to see the space that you're in as one that can be shaped, one that is malleable and is not rigid and fixed, but one that can constantly be shaped by you should you choose to step into it. Today, we're going to have a conversation, a coaching conversation with two phenomenal people. And the re- I invited them here because these are the kinds of people that we spend time with inside of the Trailblazer Collective. The kinds of people who are looking to push boundaries, who are willing to go deeper into themselves to find out more about what is true, and who look at community as one of the vehicles of change, of being able to shape the malleable world that they're in. And so from that place there, I'm really excited to just spend some time slowing down with both of them. Let's first um, let's first bring in Muriel. Muriel, welcome to the conversation. I'm going to unmute you here. Hello, Muriel. How are you?
Hello again.
Hey. So we got a chance to talk before we started here, Muriel. And for this conversation, what I want to do is leave the space here for us to be able to create from the standpoint of whatever your greatest fears or your greatest desires in this conversation, right? So if you if we were going to talk about anything in this conversation that had the potential to change your life, what would we talk about?
Let's start with greatest fear. Greatest fear right now, at present, is to not being able to find employment soon.
Hmm.
COVID situation is making this very hard, but I see a lot of opportunities as well. So the fear is turning into um, optimism, and I try to not be fearful because that hinders your action and your mindset and your motivation. So I don't want to, I've always been very bold in many things, so I don't want to be fearful. Okay. Uh, Maybe I'm fearful that my daughters will be fall sick, or when I'm in fear, it's usually worries more than fear. It's worries about my kids. Other than that, I don't see uh, the room to be fearful because there are so much other things to work on. As far as fear and what was the other one?
Fear and your greatest fears and your greatest desires right here.
So my, oh, excuse me, I have to get my battery.
Mm-hmm.
So my greatest desire right now is to, again, find employment, fulfilling employment, and for my daughters to be fulfilled and happy with their choices, whether it is personally or academically. But yes, it's my greatest desire is these two, and also to continue meet wonderful people and expand my journey with discovering stories, people, interesting things. Like I said, the more you expand yourself to the world, the more you're going to discover or run into magic. I've had so many serendipity moments, like the butterfly effects. That shall continue. This is my desire for
Yeah.
this tool. Here you go.
Yeah. So let's go with that. Like, and I'm really, I appreciate you going in and exploring this here, the fear and the desire there. And it feels right now like let's talk about this. You talked about fulfilling employment right now and being in this space here, being at this time here during COVID. What, let's see, you're someone who has built multiple businesses. You're in the place, like, so you've taken on, you also talked about like how you're turning and transforming your fear into optimism. I like to look, when I think about fear, I like to look at it, one of the tools I have around that is to look at it as a compass, right? So what
As
in
what,
this
sorry?
as a compass, as a
Oh,
compass.
yeah.
And I yes, so for me, like that, when I say fear as a compass, it's like, where are you feeling the fear, and then leaning further into it, that being the place where it would support you the most, or there's the most amount of growth for you. So Muriel, for you, if we were going to go a little deeper here, and I was going to support you on really finding fulfilling employment right now, right? What would we need to talk about that would support you the most? And it may not be about either of these things. Like, I think is, I'm here to support you. What would support you the most?
Ah, so I'm working on my LinkedIn profile with someone with a company. So that's on the practical side, right? Uh, and I'm also searching for the types of companies I would like, still searching. I narrowed down the types of company I would like to work with. And basically, these companies are companies that have a company culture, not an idealistic one, but a strong company culture that ignites people to go to work with a smile. And there are many, but there are not that many. Few in mind. So what would help me once I finish my public profile, etc., is one, to make a recommendation on LinkedIn for me, and to maybe share some leads of people that I could talk to through your recommendation, because referrals are very important, more than ever nowadays, be it for job employment or for businesses that are in place. The company branding and culture, we call it referral marketing, right? So it's the same for an individual. It's referral marketing, and that helps also the the receiver to say, "Ha, this person is recommended by someone I know and trust, and has tested this person, tested the product, tested the service, etc. I I'm going to give it a shot." Yeah.
That's I just really want to call out something right now that I experienced with you, Muriel, which is one. I just want to just I'm a yes to those, just so you know, from us here, and we'll take care of that after the call. Right? There's going to be some things that I can do right now for you in this conversation, and some things afterwards. But I want to just note and just acknowledge you for asking for what you want. right? I want to start off there with just like just in this ask, I'm like, what would support you? And like, great, like a LinkedIn recommendation and additional referrals right now would be exactly what would support me from an external perspective. Now let's take this then, like I want to acknowledge that. Let's take this a little bit more internally. For you right now, as you're going through for either when it comes to the fulfilling employment or anything else out there, what's something that like either yeah, if we were going to bring this more a little bit more internally and have just a conversation about something from that perspective, what would really support you in this conversation? And the answer might be nothing in this case, and I'm good with that as well. But I want to make sure that we're creating a space to go beyond the external elements.
Well, maybe share your experience about if you've been through a career transition, how you have approached it.
I'm smiling here because there's two reasons. One, I realized that I have been through a career transition. I rarely talk about this here, um, and I'm debating right now of like answering it or not. I'm gonna share the experience, and we'll see what comes from there. Um, yeah, career transitions is something that I've been quite familiar with. The most recent one being the transition from full time work into being an entrepreneur, and then while like moving countries at the same time. But the one that feels really interesting right now is I used to be a consultant. I had spent uh, 6 years working as a retirement actuary at one of the top consulting firms on the planet, and my job was to help people, help organizations calculate the financial risks that were included around their pension plans, right? The liabilities that were around them. Um, and then I made a
Actually,
transition as an actuary, yes. So then I made a transition to leave that industry, to go into tech, to get to move into a learning and development role, and to do it. And that role was actually one that was a quite fulfilling, and B, I was able to do it at the same salary that I had left this previous engagement with. Um, and so there's a lot about this experience that was really fun. I can right now I can go through the highlights of it all with you. But the two things that really stuck out for me in that experience in that transition, actually the number one thing there, I think is something I still build right now, is finding ways to model that experience throughout. I came in through a referral, so like you said, the power of referrals. Um, but it was the actual interview process as a career changer that I think was something that was really interesting, to be able to leverage all the past things that I had done in the past, and then be able to how do I say it? Mira, what's coming up for me is a strong, like it's a design. I realize that I don't have the language for it right now, but the biggest element of it was actually demonstrating how I would be as an employee, or how I would be as a contributor in this role throughout the entire interview process. So examples of this for me end up being like it was a role around peer connection, and and there was a lot of how do you build community within the organization? How do you really bring people together? And after each interview, I sent a video thank you. This is back in 2014, before like it was even like to really, I had to really go out of my way to find a way to send a video thank you back to people. And as people were leaving, people who interviewed me, they came to me years later and they said, "You're still the only person who's ever followed up with a video interview." That really stuck out to me. Like everyone sends a message, but you're the only one that took that time to do that, and it also created a deeper connection with me and you, right? And why did I do that? Not because there's a tactic to do videos. It wasn't from a tactical perspective. The elements of it was a doing video and talking on video was part of my strengths. I was building a business on the side at that time, so doing video was part of my strengths in general. I knew it was something that would make me stand out, but it's also the way that I build community. We're on video right now, right? I could have built a blog or whatever it is, but I knew that this is how I operate in the world. And so that was one of the first things there that came and said, if I'm going to be a part of your organization, this is one of the tools that I'll use to create connection and community along the way. This is part of how I'm going to create relationships with various members of your organization. You're experiencing what I do and how I do it. The second thing that was also really fun was I got invited to 3 rounds of interviews, and after the second round, I was like, okay, I've nailed it, I got it. They called me back for a third one to talk to the big boss, and I wasn't sure what was gonna take place in that conversation, uh, and so I came into that conversation with I made up a hypothetical scenario based on what I thought the role was about, and just basically own that last conversation really around, if we were working together, here goes a plan that I have. Let's work through this, and basically created a mock situation for me and my potential manager to talk through, and to really again get a chance to see like what would it be like for us to be working together? How does she think? See how I think, so on and so forth. So I say all that there, not because I'd say all that there. Let me because there've been like two major takeaways for me through that experience. And I think that actually the biggest thing more than anything else has just been, how do I find ways to model what I'll be like in the long term throughout throughout the interview process. So I haven't shared that. I wanted to make sure that I took the time to actually share that story, because I not very many people know about the stages beforehand. And now let me bring it back to you, Muriel. Right? What's what's one thing that stuck out to you, either a takeaway, a question that you have, or something that was interesting to you about the story that I just shared there?
Thank you. Yeah, it's like gratitude and follow up.
Mm.
You follow up and you give a sense that this conversation, this interaction was meaningful, even if it was not grandiose. It's still very important to to keep the trail going with some human interaction. So yeah, thank you, and that will be it for now. Many other things, but I could ramble over and over. So
All right. Well, thanks, Muriel. I feel right now that this is a good time to take some pause here, and I'm going to invite you as we pause here. I'm going to go over to Dan B now, but as we go here,
or
actually
maybe
no,
one more thing,
yeah.
Niiamah, about the challenge. It's not the fear, but about the challenge is to, I wonder to myself, am I obsolete? To
Mm,
uplift your skill and keep up with the market.
yeah.
And I'm looking for some guidance on that, because where can I? Of course, I do my research, I do some courses, but which skills? You cannot update 1,000 skills, right? You have to focus on one or two. So, but I'm doing research on that, so no worries. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, real quick before we go off that, like that's a really real question. Like I ask myself that question. I like, am I obsolete? Like that just really hits. And I think like in making these challenges, these changes, these questions come up, right? Whether am I obsolete, or am I relevant right now? Like just variations on that. Um, what I'm going to do here, yeah, there's an element here of, I know you to be someone who's built multiple businesses in the past. You've been able to create your livelihood in various ways. There are certain skill sets that, of course, come into the role, but there's parts of it that I keep asking the question of, what is it that you bring to the table, that regardless of what, that other people are still waiting to catch up to you on, that you're so far ahead of them on, that like, you, even
Mm.
if you're out of practice, or even if you're out of whatever it is, like you're still like they can't come and touch you. That was the community building for me. I was an actuary working with spreadsheets and numbers every single day, and 2 months later I got a brand new job at my same salary, like to go and do something else, because I literally, the big boss came and he said, I don't understand why you're here. You were an actuary. How did you make it this far? Why are you in this room? And I just, I kind of laugh. I was like, look, here goes the thing. What most people see is that they think that I'm an actuary. They think that that's what I am. But really, what I have been is a community builder. I build community in any and everything that I do. I'm just now looking, instead of doing it on the side, I'm now looking to just put my full time energy into it. I get curious about what would happen if this thing that I've been doing on the side becomes where I put all my effort into. And so I'm going to leave you with that question here, which is like, when I hear the word obsolete, there's a level of competition around will I be able to outdo any of the other competitors, any of the other candidates that are along the way? And the question you'll find with me, the place that I'm always going to try and gear you toward, it's not, I don't, not how do you be the best, but how do you be the only? And you have decades worth of experience, and you have experiences that most people have never gone through. I would be encourage you to spend some time looking at that and say, what's the thing that like no one, like very few other people or no one else in particular would be able to meet me on, and then how do I position that for the marketplace? How do I bring that out there? What are the roles that are looking for this, such that I don't need to go and invest in more skills? You put in decades worth of work. You've built multiple businesses. Like there are things that that are readily at your disposal. And I want to make sure that we're not discounting that, um, it, in order to be what we think that others might be asking for.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, Muriel. So let's leave it with that right here. I'm going to go over to Danby here. I'm going to mute you again. Um, I'll go to Danby. Danby, you can go ahead and unmute yourself now. It was
Hey.
really, really good to spend some time with you. Before we move on, we might go in a completely different direction here, but what's been your greatest insight from anything that we've talked about, maybe even before we even like hit record in this conversation? What's been your greatest insight so far?
For me, really, it was what you said as you were wrapping up the previous section about, I've heard you say this before, but to not be the best, but to think about being the only. And as Muriel was talking, I was thinking what you were thinking around. I don't know that upskilling is what like I would have gone to immediately from everything that Muriel has shared about her experience. I'm pretty sure she has a ton of skills and a ton of experience that very few other people have. And it's probably just, pulling out what she is amazing at that other people can't do. And the
Like
way
it,
you said, like, not the best, but the only, kind of helped me bring it, also kind of reflect on what I was doing.
yeah. Tell me a little bit more here. Thank you, because I love to, as I say, when I'm coaching one person, I'm coaching everyone, right? And so out of all the things we talked about, that stuck out to you. Just
Mm.
just to tease that out a little bit further, and then we might go in a completely different way. But to tease that out a little bit further for yourself, what are the things that make where you are the only? What's I guess what I want to say is, like, if you're going to bring that insight and help you apply it to you right now, what will we need to explore really quickly around it?
Hmm. More and more, what I'm realizing is I feel like we've been taught, maybe our generation, the millennial generation, has been told over and over again, like, you're not that special, like you think you are, but you aren't. Um, but I think as I build my own business and I learn more about myself, um, in the context of not trying to be a good employee and not trying to be a good team player, but more of what do I want and what's fun for me, what's easy for me, what makes my life more fulfilling. I've been thinking about, like, how am I different? Like, what do I want that's different from what I see out there? And I think someone just told me this morning, because we all talk to other entrepreneurs, it feels like everyone is running their own business, but we're actually a very small part of the population. And in that similar way, I feel like when we talk about the best, it's about competition, right? How am I different? How am I better? How am I the best than everyone else doing this thing? But more and more, I'm realizing, like, oh, I started off in a mindset of competition, but more and more I'm realizing that, like, Actually, I am a little different and I am a little special, and maybe I am the only one thinking about things the way I do. And for me, that's shown up as, wait, hey, do you think that you and your audience, you as in like most business owners I know, you're centered in your part of the world and you speak in one language and you seem to be talking to one group of people, but I'm over here like 12 time zones away. I'm trying to learn from you and I feel like you're not talking to me. And it feels like, and I thought I can't be the only person who feels this way, but everyone else seems to go along with it and it doesn't seem to be that big a problem for a lot of people, even if they're in other time zones. And it made me think, well, maybe I'm the only person who feels like it should be different, that people should talk to a global audience and understand that when you run an online business, you're talking to the world. And it's a choice that you make whether or not you want to be globally conscious, to borrow your words. But I've struggled to find other people who are thinking about the online business as an industry in this way. And it makes me feel like I'm the only one doing it. And a big part of it is just kind of showing up as who I am. So to kind of go down this line of thought, I started as a web designer. I started my business building websites. Now, I would say the bigger part of my business is copywriting, copywriting for services-based online businesses. And in the process, I've just realized that I'm very good at writing copy, and a big part of what sells a business on a website is the copy, and that's what I'm focusing on. And it's all about words and it's all about language, right? And a lot of it is, what kind of an audience are you talking to? What kind of word choices are you making? And things I do very naturally because of my international background, dare I say, no one else seems to be thinking about. And yeah, that's what came up for me when I was thinking, like, don't try to be the best, be the only.
Yeah, let's continue off this here. Demi, there's some magic that's in there that I want to make sure we don't lose. You actually brought up a couple different things with being the only that I just want to just kind of pull out real quick, because there's like the positive of like, don't like, I'm gonna call it positive negative right now. I don't know if that's actually the right lens to look at it, but just for the sake of this conversation, there's like a pool of like, yeah, like if I was the only, then I don't have to worry about competition, you know. And like I'm out, like to me competition is, I'm like, it bores me. It just bores me. I'm like, why are we working so hard to like compete against them when you should, like, when we could be playing to see how do we co-create together, how do we collaborate, and how do I bring anything that's bring something new out to the surface, right? So there's this one element that I feel a bit of like desire of like, hey, wait, what would it be like for me to just be in that space of like just being the only and own in my category, own it, like being known as a result of that. You know, people come to me because of that. And then there's another side that I'm hearing too around like, am I the only one thinking about this? Am I the only one where this is a problem? Am I the only one seeing it this way? You know? And I just want to kind of call that out real quick around like, just like both ends, or like at least two ends of the only
Yes.
elements of it, right? You also talked about being different. And I want to kind of expand this to see what you're trying to create here. But I think one of the things that's really interesting has been, you talk about like being different and competition. And then another space of being like the only one. And what was really interesting to me there is a bit of the distinction of what it felt was almost like, how do I be different in terms of like, there's an active thing that I need to do and I have to find this difference in order
And
to
that's
be
the
competitive.
competition.
Yeah. It's like if I'm gonna, like, I have to find my competitive advantage, like gotta be
Right.
different. And then there's a like, and that felt like work. I felt there's like an energy around that. And from my own experience, as well as what I feel like I'm hearing from you, there's another energy. The energy there is like, well, or like I'm just, I can be me, and I'm seeing myself like allowing more of me to come out. And what's interesting is that like, so a lot of people think that I'm woo woo, touchy feely, all in my feelings here, right? But the most logical thing to me, right, is that if you want to be the most different, all you have to do is be yourself, because there is 1 in 7+ billion people like you, right? Like they're like, if
And
you
it's the
like,
easiest thing to do. Like I'm all for doing the easy thing now. Like now
yeah.
that no one else is telling me what to do, I'm like, I want to do what the easiest thing is, and that's just being what I am.
So let's talk through that, because like there's an element of that that is like, that's like, once that like, if you're willing to do that and you pass a threshold, like it just opens up possibility, right? There's another threshold of it, and I know myself, it's simple like this, it's like it feels like simple to like be me and to like just go with that, but it, to me, it doesn't necessarily feel easy all the time, because and it's in that element of like pushing the boundaries. Can I like, it's in this
Mm.
part right here, it's simple, it's like I just want to be me, I'm thinking about this here, but am I the only one, right? And it's in that question of how you respond to it that I think really gets to the crux of it all. So we spent some time exploring this year. I know that there's a lot of power that we can have in just the next 10 minutes here, really diving into um, using this as a springboard into where it is that you want to play. We talked a little bit before coming on here about some things that were on your mind, and you said the words like pushing boundaries. So for me, Danby, like I'd love to just see here, if we were gonna have a conversation and we're gonna talk about one thing that would really help you like push your boundaries right here, what would we need to talk about that would support you in
Mm.
in where you're going next?
So I never understood what imposter syndrome was until I started running my own business. Because I think I had a lot of external validation to say, you are good at what you do. You're right where you're supposed to be. Like this is your title. This is how much you make because of the work you do, and everyone values you. But now that like I need to give that self validation because no one else is going to do it as a business owner, a big thing that comes up for me is like, who the hell am I to be that person that says the business world, the online business world, should be more globally conscious and be more diverse and be more inclusive? And who am I to kind of step up and say, I'm going to make that happen? And I think that's the boundary for me to work against, to work for.
Yeah, yeah, nice cats there, nice cats there. Okay, so yeah, all this is tying together. What's the question that's on your heart right now?
Does anyone care?
Yeah, what's really interesting here, we started out this conversation. I don't know if I was recorded or not, but I invited you to be selfish and self-interested, right? And the reason for that is it's intentional, right? Because you had said earlier, like I'm thinking, is no one else thinking this, right? And it's really hard to know what people are thinking. I actually don't know what you're thinking right now, and I'm in conversation with you, right? It's really hard to know what people are thinking, and I think there's this element here of being, well, first I just get it, like because like I'm talking about something that I'm living through myself, right? Shaping the next era of humanity, championing leadership, shaping the next era. Does anyone ever even see like humanity as something that needs to be shaped right now? Do they even think that it's possible? Can anyone get it? So I understand where that's coming from, and from my own perspective. Um, the elements here are, what I've found is that a lot of people are thinking it, but they don't know, and they're thinking it, and they're in like the exact same position as you, Danby. They're just not in terms of like thinking it, but they're not in the position to actually go out and lead in that way, to show that example, right? So my question would be, um, if the answer was yes, like if the answer was just yes, like there are a ton of people who are thinking about this here, right? And we were able to move past that question. right? It feels to me here that, and I said this to you in the past, like you are the leader you are looking for.
Yeah.
So if we were going to play that game, if you being the leader that goes out and says, actually, you may not know this, but there's a way of having this conversation of being a leader in the online business world that has a global consciousness embedded within it, that is thinking about time zones, that's thinking about different cultures, that's finding a way to connect this all here, right? If you were going to be that leader, what's the conversation that we would need to have right now that would support you in showing up as that? Let's even say this in the next 24 hours.
It's so hard because I think where my brain goes is I want to see what other people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've just established that like other people aren't doing this. That's why I feel compelled to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm going to pause really quickly here, right? Because you are your client, right? You are the person that's out. The other people, there's someone else out there that's thinking the same thought, and they're waiting for you to show an example of what it's like to do it. Everyone, like, this is like, it's interesting, but I feel like there's a silent majority in the things that we believe. There's a silent majority out there that just never raised their hand, that doesn't know where to ask, that's out there looking and looking and looking, and you're all looking at each other, looking at it without like actually being able to bring it to life. So yeah, there's an invitation of this. Let me take it out of like the abstract. What would it be like overall? And I'm feeling called to say, like, right now, your business, and your business right here, you're in the online business. You've been featured and acclaimed by some big names in your industry for the work that you do, because you have found your own, like, your global consciousness has you in such a way that language and copy editing just kind of flows through you in a way that actually reaches the person that's in front of you, right? How are you bringing that global consciousness into your business right now?
I think just being open to working with and like changing the way I work. Let's say time zones, right? Most people will say you shouldn't work like super early hours and super late hours, but that's what ends up happening when you want to talk to people all over the world. And I know it's a compromise that some people aren't willing to make, and it's something that I'm very happy to do, because for me it's like, oh, that's part of running like a global business. That's what we do. I feel like where I can start that feels really doable. What I don't want to do is point fingers at people I want to learn from and say, hey, like, this is what you should, like, this is what I wish you did, right? Like, that's not the thing I want to do. And I think the challenge is I feel like my business isn't big enough or like in a position or influential enough to be like, oh, look at all the things I'm doing. So I feel like what I can do from this current, like today, like where I am, is just kind of talking about what I'm thinking and helping that. Like, someone said to me the other day, like, so often we're all spinning in our own jar and we can't see the label that's on the outside. And I feel like there's a lot that I want to share about myself and the way I think about running a global business, even if it's like a tiny one-person business, that I can't quite pull out the strands of, because it's just such a embedded part of who I am. And I'm hoping that by sharing like individual thoughts that come up, like I'll be able to say, oh, here's that one concrete thing that I can talk about. And I think part of my frustration is not having that concreteness in how I want to show up. I feel like it's such a messy process, and maybe that's just kind of part of it.
I do believe it is part of it. As you're saying this here, I'm like, Danby, you should really come and join us inside of the Trailblazer Collective, because like what you're describing there has been like, that's part of what we do, where it's like, because I'm hearing from you, like, you're a thought leader in this regard. You're leading others through your thoughts right here. And what's real, and part of what's hard there is like yeah, I see a smile. What happened there?
And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what thought leaders do. Because I never would have labeled myself a thought leader. Like, it's something I always aspired to. you know, even in the corporate world, when you see thought pieces, you're like, oh, that's literally being paid to be you. You're being paid to be yourself, to share your thoughts. Like that is my kind of like that's my North Star to earn a living just being me.
We're practicing it right here. I'm not sure if you realize it, but like in your attempt to go and show other, like to see it from other people, in our conversation right now, there are people who are going to watch this and now have learned something about being more globally conscious in their business. The element of the time zones, for example, being one thought that's on your mind. We do it by practicing, right? I'm very specific about the collective because like it's designed as a way for a place where you can be messy, and we bring curiosity to the mix, which allows us to help you pull out those strands without you having to have the answer right off the bat. Like, what are the top 5 things that need to get done? We can actually just spend time understanding why is this important to you, and being able to help you articulate in a space with other people they're bringing their own curiosities because they're leading their own movements, they're bringing their own thought leadership, and so the questions that they ask are going to pull on different threads in different ways, but just to give you that space to continue to be curious about it. So I want to call that out in particular. I'm like this is what we do. We want to make sure we create the space for that. I'm realizing here there's one last thing I want to say as we wrap up this call here, which is I am going to invite you to just to put your thoughts out loud, and to allow that like to just run kind of in the background for now, to be able to play with that and to say like, hey, this is one of the things I'm thinking. It might be just one thought piece around like, here goes 5 ways that I think about being like I bring global consciousness into my business. And it's not you need to do this or whatever it is, but you're sharing your thing so that someone else who's looking for examples of other leaders in here can finally come and see you.
I love it.
Yeah. All right, Danby. We'll end this conversation here. I'm glad that we got to spend some time here, and we'll spend more time exploring this all inside the collective. There's more to come out from there. All right.
Hey, one more thing, please.
Hey, yes, Miriam.
Before we say goodbye, because I decided to extend. I postponed my meeting 15 minutes because it's good to you commit to an hour, you stick to the hour. But one more thing, Danby, can I invite you on Facebook and LinkedIn?
Absolutely.
And what kind of copywriting?
Miriam, what I'm gonna do a quick pause here and wrap this part of the conversation up. That way, if we want to stay up, we can. No worries. I'm glad you did that. But I'm gonna wrap up this part of the conversation. I invite you all to come out in the collective, and you see it's already working. Like we're already starting to work with each other to ask more questions here. I see you. Go to NiiamahAshong.com/collective if you're interested in finding out more, or to come join us in the tribe as well. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Heyo, Niiamah here. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet, and then go ahead and leave one of your insights from today's video in the comments below. If you're looking to take this deeper, you can go and watch another video, or you can go to niiamah.com/tribe to get exclusive invitation to our tribe member only events. I'll see you soon.